How can I help you today then, Melissa?
Um, so me and my friend have
Hmm.
like kind of she's in property and we have kind of been seeing all about rent to rent and properties and we've kind of been interested in getting into this.
Hmm.
Um, we were doing like quite a lot of research
Hmm.
and we want to kind of get started. And initially we did think that maybe we may not need help from anyone because given the fact that she's already in property herself, um, although like not for many, many years, she's
Hmm.
only still a sales agent.
Hmm.
Um, but like we've been having some trouble in terms of um, kind of figuring out on how to kind of kickstart because um looking at loads of like your videos and like loads of other people's like videos and advices and like kind of their step by steps on how to go about it. When we're looking at, Open Rent, Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, and etc., all of these platforms,
Hmm.
um, given the cost of living, the rents are ridiculously high.
Sure.
And I do understand that there's like a, negotiation and stuff that can pull through, but given the fact that, we are also would be a startup business, so we wouldn't have a lot of, I know that a lot of established rent to rent people have like a website and um they have like a portfolio to kind of show the landlords and the agents to kind of show that what they're doing is reliable. So they're somewhat able to maybe negotiate and have a bit more of, um, a field to play with.
Hmm.
But especially when you're starting up, I just wanted to ask like what you would recommend when the rent is quite high and how you kind of go about finding somewhere
Hmm.
that's like basically you're gonna be able to profit off of because realistically when we're looking at areas like for example there's like loads of events happening in London this year
Hmm.
like wireless like so Finsbury Park, Tottenham, there's like the Tottenham Stadium, Tottenham area is good as well,
Yeah.
and but rents there are around like nearly £3,000.
Hmm.
And if you look at the fact that we were trying to think that, you know, as a startup business, maybe we might not be booked out the whole entire month.
Hmm.
So when we were just trying to do like the average calculations, if we were doing around like 180 to £200 a night,
Hmm.
and then if we were timesing that by like on an average of like 18 or 19,
Hmm.
it wasn't kind of pulling through to pay through with the rent. And obviously
Yeah.
we would have other expenses as well, with that being cleaning and obviously
Running
putting like
costs.
decorations, yeah, running costs just in general. So
Hmm.
I just wanted to ask like, what you would recommend and what you would think in terms of that side of things.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so it sounds like you're looking like in quite an expensive part of London by the
Yeah.
sound of things. We do have some students that are doing well in London, but I think part of rent to rent is being prepared to sometimes go outside of London as well.
Yeah.
Even just like whereabouts in London are you based?
Well, we're currently in North London, so in Wood Green, Haringey.
Okay, so like would you be prepared to like drive an hour up the road, like maybe like Watford, Reading, those types of places?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because that's, that might be something that could immediately sort of help you just finding areas that there's a bit more negotiation room. I do find landlords that are outside of like London a bit more friendly in terms of negotiation, and they have a bit
yeah,
more wiggle room to play with, because the property is not as expensive as it is in London. And obviously, yeah, like you mentioned, the cost of living is so high at the moment that there's not much negotiation going on at all really with landlords in London because they have mortgages to pay as well, you know.
yeah,
It sounds like there's some gaps in your knowledge,
yeah,
and obviously you need to fill those gaps. Like, I think rent to rent used to be a strategy that most people could just jump into and get straight into, but I think there's a lot more people now doing it. So in order to be successful from it, you need to be one of the better ones.
yeah,
Yeah, and that does take some practice and like some expertise that you can learn. But it's not just something you can just give a go and try. You really do need to like jump in both feet and like really set up your business properly,
yeah,
market, consistently, you do need to have a landing page at least, you know, not like a full website, but at least like a simple landing page that says what it is that you do.
Yeah.
And you need to build relationships, and that can't really be done by just phoning estate agents here and there, or you know, just speaking to a landlord once or twice a month. You know, it needs to be like a system that you have in place where you're constantly marketing, you know, every day, every week, at least Monday to Friday. And then out of that pool of people that you're marketing to, obviously most of them are going to probably say no, you know, it isn't for us. But you know, sort of 10-20% of those people will be interested in having a conversation. And then it's more about what you say on the conversation, and then further to that, going to meet them and actually like pitching face to face, and building that trust. You know, it's not something you can really do from behind a laptop anymore, you know,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning. You've built it and you've got some income coming in, then yes, it can be like a laptop lifestyle business. But for the first 6 months to a year, you need to be actually going and meeting people, and getting them to like you and trust you, basically, because business is like a people's game, you know, and you can have the fanciest logo and landing page, but if you're not trustworthy and you can't come across in the right way, then people just aren't going to give you the keys to their asset, you know.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Um, also going off of that, so a few pages that we were looking at, they were saying, so would you agree with that? So, with when people think about Airbnbs and just like
Hmm.
kind of basically putting their house out for short-term lets,
Sure,
they just think of like parties and just like their house getting wrecked, basically.
sure.
In terms of going about that, what would you recommend? Because, you know, when you do, when approaching landlords saying short-term lets, automatically they kind of just start to rule things off and they kind of know what's coming their way.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's down to the language that you use. And
Yeah,
like we've got various different ways that we pitch to landlords that don't involve any Airbnb talk at all, you know. We don't really mention Airbnb at all when we're pitching landlords, just because, like you say, they do have like a negative connotation attached to it. We find that even the properties that we actually have on rent to rents, we don't even do like nightly stays. We do like 3 to 4 night minimum stays. So we get people to come like for the week. So they're more like working professional people rather than people who want to have a party.
yeah,
So it's a lot to do with what you're saying and how you're saying it, rather than like, you know, I don't think you should really mention Airbnb and Booking.com when you're initially pitching the landlord, just because they do initially get turned off by it straight away.
yeah. So what, how would you go about it then? Would it be like, because I know, um, one, a few people were saying that, they were pitching it in a way where it was like letting out to companies for short term, to other companies for short term lets for like workers to,
Hmm.
stay, like whether that
Hmm.
be NHS workers or,
Hmm.
um, some people, if they're doing like lettings around Canary Wharf, for example, it would be
Hmm.
like more so business workers that work in the big three.
Hmm.
So like would you agree with that? Is that how you would go about it as well?
That would be a better way of doing it than mentioning anything short term, Airbnb and Booking.com for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, we do have systems in place that we use, that we tell them that we are working with people in the area, local companies, and then we do some due diligence to actually find the names of the companies that are working in the area, so that when landlords have those objections, we have something to say straight away to come back with. And it's about being prepared and knowing how to handle those objections. And we have things in the program, like we have like a questionnaire, like a viewings or a landlord objection sort of sheet that we have. And I get my students to have that on the screen when they're calling landlords, so that when they're on the phone to them, they don't get flustered and they can just read off of what's on the screen, and just say the right things so that you're not
Yeah.
losing out on a deal before it's even begun, you know?
Yeah. And when you mentioned saying like kind of possibly going outside of London for especially like for our first deal,
Hmm.
um, I know like how would you think like is it I'm not trying to say like is it successful, but especially at the start because it is a bit like scary at first as well, because especially given the fact that we're so young. So we're both just 21. She's about to turn 21
Very
soon.
young. Yeah.
And it's like obviously with the money that we earn as well, and having our own outgoings, so it
Hmm.
takes a while for us to save up. So kind of like
Of course.
putting all that, not all, like a lot of our savings down, for example, for a house that may we may get asked for a deposit. And do you know that some people were saying that, to try and negotiate a no deposit.
Hmm.
Um, but you know, whether that be just a deposit, just a rent and whatnot, and just kind of like leaving it into the ball court and into luck, and when you're putting out onto Airbnb and Booking.com. So
Hmm.
especially when it's a bit more out of London, because
Hmm.
initially why we had thought like London, these spots were good, it was because of the amount of events that were coming up, like whether
Hmm.
that being like, for example, the Beyonce concert in Tottenham Stadium
Hmm.
and whatnot. So if I were to, for example, do it round in Reading, I know there's a festival as well, but
Hmm.
like in Watford and stuff, how successful do you think it would be in terms of like booking consistency?
Yeah. I think you're only thinking about rent to rent from like the perspective of Airbnb and Booking.com. And I think
Yeah.
that's because most people online in your sort of generation are only talking about Airbnb and
Yeah.
Booking.com. So like that's one small part of the business.
Yeah.
There's a whole another part of the business which is like larger HMO properties that are like tired and need someone like yourself with a bit more energy, a bit more eye for like a creative innovation, to interior design, maybe those sort of skills to come in and make it nicer and then rent it to working professionals for a premium. And that's more of like a month to month type of agreement with contractors, with professionals, and it's a lot easier than worrying about booking.com and getting those 20 nights booked every month.
Yeah.
We teach people how to market to those types of landlords, those HMO landlords who are looking for someone with a bit more energy about them. So that's the main part of my business. I'd say like 80% of my rent to rents are those types of properties, big sort of HMOs. Some of them are like blocks of flats, like bed sits that have their own en
Yeah.
suites and things like that. That's the most of my business is those, and then we have a few that are like 3 bed, 2 bed houses that we do put on Airbnb and Booking.com. But I wouldn't say that's the majority of our portfolio. I'd say that's probably like 20%. So you're thinking about a small part of the whole picture.
Yeah.
There's even some that we have, that are like we have shipping engineers in them, and they're just 5 bedroom HMOs, and those guys have been in there for like 5 years now. So you can get long term agreements with companies as well.
Yeah.
And if they're paying you, a premium to what you're paying the landlord, then it's a lot more consistent and like reliable than constantly like worrying about getting those 20 nights booked and then paying for cleaners. And I think because you guys come up on social media, right, all you see is everyone talking about Airbnb and Booking.com.
Yeah.
And from someone who's been in it for like 7 years now, I would just advise you to take that with a bit of a pinch of salt, because even my own houses that I have, I rent those to like doctors and nurses on like a 6 month, 3 month, 9 month type of agreement. I don't even have them on Booking.com and Airbnb anymore just because of the hassle.
Yeah.
And it's more efficient for us to just rent them out and make maybe a little less money, but have less headache. So then we can concentrate on finding new properties, marketing to new landlords, running my other businesses, and just living a good life as well, at the same time. So
Yeah.
I think you need to get out of the box of like only thinking about the Airbnb
Yeah.
stuff and think about it as like a whole property management company that has
Yeah.
various different ways of making money inside it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what me and my friend were thinking about kind of as well. Like when we were initially like we went on, like, we were just like, okay, like one of the first things that we should think about is like, what would our company name be?
Hmm.
And we weren't like trying to do any of those, like, when we're looking at like, Gen
Typical.
Z, like atypical Airbnb names or
Yeah,
stays
yeah,
and stuff. We were
yeah, yeah.
just like more so like property because, like you were saying, we did initially, we were like, okay, initially we will do something more small scale, but over
Hmm.
the years, if it does become successful,
Hmm.
like you said, we do want to go more into like the bigger stuff like
Hmm.
property.
Hmm.
Um, and so, with yourself, for example, you're obviously very established and
Hmm.
you're able to have people just, without you having to do much, have people approach you like doctors and nurses and want to, book your the house
Hmm.
out for like 6 months. So especially as like a startup, without like, Airbnb, I know like not a lot of maybe putting it on there, maybe they might find it because I know Airbnb apparently has this 9 to 5 day rule that's for like short term stays, or is it
Yeah.
9 to 5 days
90 day
in
rule in London, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. But just in general, how would you recommend to go about it? Because I was just a bit worried about like especially just being so small and just a startup and like say the kind of this whole field and industry being so saturated now because I think everyone is kind of now like the last few years
Hmm.
is like trying getting into it.
Hmm.
Um, that like how would you recommend like going about it where we do actually get those bookings in?
Hmm. You just have to be more of a talented marketer, basically, is the best way to describe it. You need to be on more than just one platform, not just your typical short-term stay platforms, but there's other platforms like Spare Room, Open Rent. You need to go and do like guerrilla marketing as well, which is like handing out leaflets. We go and leave leaflets in like the local hospitals. They put them up on a notice board for us. We go into like Amazon depots, leave leaflets there. Anywhere where there's like a development happening or like any sort of industrial work, we go and speak to those people directly. We bombard them with emails to their HR staff. We just do all that it takes basically to create traffic because that's what you need to do. And then out of that traffic, you get to sort of filter the good ones. But with any business, you have to fill the cup up like with water, so to speak. Like you have to have leads coming in. Otherwise,
Yeah.
your business won't work. So once you fill the cup up with leads, then it's a case of filtering through, and then making them come to you rather than you always having to target them. But initially, it's marketing quite aggressively. So all of the above, letters, leaflets, walking into places, emails, phone calls, referrals, as many ways as possible. We even put up like estate agent boards, guaranteed rent boards all over our investment area. Even before we had any properties, we were doing that, just to try and get people to get used to seeing the brand and like psychology can work in funny ways like that. When people see the brand more often, they feel more comfortable when you call them to like
Yeah.
offer them something. So it's um it's jumping in with both feet, and I just think at the moment because of the gaps in your knowledge, which is fine, everyone comes to us at this stage that you're at. I think because of the gaps you're having like apprehension, and that's normal. But like if you were to fill in some of those gaps, you'd become so much more confident in what you're doing, and it would make the process so much less painful for you. Because at the moment, I feel like everywhere you look, you're seeing like a reason why not to do it, rather
Yeah, I'm
than
a bit,
like,
yeah, because it's a bit scary, like, as in, because I'm a freelancer, so I work in film and TV.
hmm,
So, like, for example, I'm currently based in Watford right now. Like, I work in Warner Brothers Studios at the moment.
oh no, another lady
Um,
who works at Warner Brothers, Megan.
and so I'm currently just working on a series there,
Hmm.
and like, so obviously with me freelancing, like, I'll be in film and TV for like 6, 7 months, and then after
Hmm.
that, I'm kind of like off. So. I do earn quite well for my age,
Hmm.
given like the industry pays quite well, but it's
Hmm.
just like it's also, you know, like you said, because you can never know. Like it's like a unknown from it's like it's the unknown. Like you
Of
never know
course.
because you know doing all of this and putting all of this in, and you don't know if it's going to return back.
Hmm.
And I do really do agree that like you know I'm young, I've got nothing to lose. Like you know, this is the age where I'm meant to take the risks.
Absolutely.
But it's yeah, but it is still quite scary at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I understand that completely. But like, where do you see yourself in 6 months, 5 years time? You know, do you want to be working? It sounds like you got a good job. Maybe you enjoy it. I don't know. But do you see yourself as an entrepreneur running your own business, or do you see yourself working a 9 to 5 for the next sort of 10, 20, 30 years? You know, it's down to where you see yourself, you know.
Yeah. No, no, it's definitely, I've always known this since I was very young. I've always wanted more for myself.
Hmm.
It's just, I think it's just kind of like getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I understand that totally. It's the hardest step for most people to do is take that first one, you know. But I think at the moment you're sort of like you're wiggling your foot over the water, like, shall I do it? Shall I don't? Whereas like in business or in anything, but mainly in entrepreneurship, you have to jump like at some
Yeah.
point in, like completely. And that's how you kind of get somewhere. You have to almost burn the bridges a bit. And like being so young, you've got so much time. Like you could stay in your job for another 5 years, 10 years, and still be young enough to start a business, you know, in your 30s. But I just think that you can always go back to that at some point, and like people are always going to accept skilled people like yourself in that line of work. It's not going to go
Yeah.
anywhere. Whereas as you get older, I think your margin and your time and your energy sort of goes down in terms of being able to start your own business and jump in with both feet. I think that window gets smaller and smaller the older you get because life happens and you know
Yeah.
you
More
might buy a house,
responsibilities.
more responsibility, maybe children, who knows, you know, and like it just, if not now, then when, you know, like what a great age to start. It's going to take you a little while to get going, yes, but if you jumped in with both feet in 6 months, a year's time, you could have a thriving business, you know, that's allowing you to potentially look at leaving your job and just going full time into property and that'd be a great position to be in.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so I'm just gonna pass all this information on to my friend,
Hmm.
and I do feel like, yeah, I do feel much better after this call. Thank you. Like, you know, I do feel a bit more enlightened, a bit more like
Good.
a bit more less wiggly off my feet in the water, a bit
Yeah.
more jumpy.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I think you could do well from it. You know, it's just I can't kid you into I can't explain the whole business to you on a 40-minute call, like 7 years of
yeah,
experience, but
yeah,
I just feel like if it's something you want to do, then you have to be better than most other people that are doing it. And
yeah,
to be better than most other people doing it, you need to get someone in your corner who's done it. And
yeah,
that's going to elevate you to like a higher position in the marketplace so that when your average person who's just watched a few of these influencers on TikTok and then called a landlord trying to do a deal, when it's them versus you offering on a deal, you're going to be so much better prepared and look like such a more professional option to go with for the landlord that it's going to be a no-brainer for them. So I wouldn't say it's saturated. I would just say that the better ones are going to be the ones who get most of the business.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So have a think about it.
Yeah, perfect.
There's no rush.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. It was lovely speaking to you.
You too. Have a good day, Melissa.
You too. You too.
Speak soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.